With just days left before the trade deadline, the Miami Dolphins are reportedly preparing to go all in. Their season is unraveled. 6 losses, offensive chaos, and a fan base demanding answers. Their solution? A bold push to trade for Shedeur Sanders, the electrifying college standout currently wasting away on Cleveland's bench. The move reeks of urgency, maybe even desperation, but it also reflects something deeper. A franchise obsessed with splash, spectacle, and the illusion of control through chaos.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
This isn't just a roster shakeup. It's a cultural flashpoint between two franchises operating on opposite philosophies. Miami is throwing logic to the wind in hopes that charisma and college tape can turn their fate. Cleveland, meanwhile, continues to clutch its conservative playbook while ignoring the superstar in its locker room. The result? A brewing drama where Sanders isn't just a player. He's the pivot point for two teams chasing identity in radically different ways. The Miami Dolphins are trying to steal Shedeur Sanders from the Cleveland Browns in what's shaping up to be one of the most chaotic quarterback storylines of the NFL season. The Dolphins are desperate. The Browns are indecisive. And Shedeur, who hasn't even played a single NFL down yet, is somehow at the center of the league's latest panic-fueled power play. Let's get straight into it. The Dolphins are 1-6. The offense is collapsing, and the hype that surrounded this team just months ago has evaporated. Turnovers, injuries, bad coaching, no rhythm. Miami is circling the drain. And now, reports are flying that they're considering a bold, last-minute trade for Sanders. The rookie Cleveland won't even start. This isn't just a football decision. This is spectacle. This is marketing. This is a franchise watching everything fall apart and deciding to gamble on potential instead of letting the season fully die in front of their fans. It's the classic move of a team in freefall. Go all in on a name that people are already talking about, not because it's the smartest move, but because it's the loudest. And who better to chase than Shedeur Sanders? The college numbers alone are ridiculous. Over 4,000 yards, 37 touchdowns, a 74% completion rate. And that's just the stats. What people really talk about when it comes to Shedeur is the presence, the brand, the leadership, the energy. He's not just a quarterback. He's a walking story. He commands attention. He creates attention. That's what Miami is buying into. That's why they're reportedly trying to pull off a buzzer-beating trade. Because in this league, if you can't win games, you better win headlines. And right now, Shedeur is a headline waiting to happen. Now, let's talk about Cleveland. Because none of this would even be on the table if the Browns weren't actively sitting on this guy like he's a maybe. They benched him. They chose Gabriel. And they've done almost nothing to develop Sanders or make him part of their long-term plan. For what reason? No one knows. Because from the outside looking in, it feels like they're either blind to what they have or paralyzed by fear of making the wrong move. Either way, it's the kind of short-sighted quarterback management that Cleveland has been criticized for forever. And now it could cost them. Because if Sanders ends up in Miami and turns out to be even half of what people think he could be, Cleveland becomes a team that missed it. Again, they become the ones who drafted a potential franchise player and never gave him a real shot. The ones who watched the headline making, fan base reviving quarterback walk out the door, while they stuck with a safe option that gets them to 7-10 and nothing more. And don't think for a second the rest of the league isn't watching this unfold. Baltimore's name has already been floated. Other teams are sniffing around. This isn't just about Miami and Cleveland anymore. It's about who sees the future of the league and who's stuck in the past. Because that's what this whole saga is really about. The clash between spectacle and stability. Miami wants a splash. They're tired of being boring. They're tired of pretending this Tua-led offense is going anywhere. They want the chaos, the buzz, the potential. They want Shedeur. Cleveland? They've got him. But they don't seem to understand what that means. They're not building around him. They're not playing him. They're acting like they got time to figure it out while other teams are circling with offers. And in today's NFL, that hesitation is deadly because this league doesn't wait. It moves fast. It rewards teams that jump on hype and make bold bets. It punishes the ones that stall. Just look at the narrative here. Shedeur hasn't taken a single NFL snap, and yet he's positioned as a possible savior for a team in crisis. That's how powerful his presence is right now. That's how much people believe in what he could become, even before he's proved it at this level. And Miami? They believe it enough to risk everything. Picks, roster pieces, maybe even Tua's job. Because if they pull this off, they don't just change the quarterback room. They change the energy of the entire franchise. This isn't just about who throws passes. It's about who gets people to care again. That's why this move, if it happens, could be a turning point. A literal reset for a team that's gone stale. A way to rewrite the story of a season already going down in flames. But if it doesn't happen, if Cleveland says no and holds on to Sanders, but still refuses to use him, that's the worst outcome of all. Because then you've got a player with sky-high upside rotting on the bench, while teams were willing to give you value, picks, possibly players for him, and you chose indecision. There's no winning in that scenario. Just more questions, more regret, more years of wondering what might have been. And that's why the pressure is real right now. For both teams. Miami can't afford to sit in limbo. They need something to change. Fast. Their season is slipping, and so is their identity. Tua is not carrying the offense anymore. The system isn't working. The hype train has derailed. And for Cleveland, this is a decision that will define how they're viewed as a franchise for the next 5 years. Either they wake up and build around the player they already have, or they watch someone else do it while they explain to their fans why they stuck with safe. And you better believe the media will be brutal if they get it wrong, because the narrative is writing itself. The league thrives on chaos. The NFL lives for these moments where the logic breaks down and the story takes over. And Shedeur, he's become the story. Whether he gets traded or not, his name is now tied to the culture war happening across the league. Old school versus new school. Conservative versus explosive. Stability versus spectacle. So now, with the trade deadline looming, every front office move is under the microscope. Every hesitation is loud. Every rumor has weight. Miami's ready to roll the dice. Cleveland's still holding the cards. And Shedeur Sanders is the wild card that might flip everything. If you're locked into this drama, hit that like button. Let us know what you'd do if you were in Cleveland's front office. Is Sanders worth the risk? Should the Browns hold out? Or is this their last chance to salvage some kind of value before the media circus turns on them? Drop your take in the comments and make sure you're subscribed, because this story is just getting started. And with the way the NFL's been moving lately, don't blink. You might miss the next explosion. The Cleveland Browns had Shedeur Sanders. They drafted him. They knew what he was coming out of college. You don't rack up 4,000 yards, 37 touchdowns, and a 74% completion rate on accident. You don't become a national conversation piece without doing something that gets people's attention. He was electric, confident, calculated, and calm under pressure. And yet, Cleveland's response? They sat him. They didn't just slow walk his development. They shoved him to the sideline entirely in favor of Gabriel, a quarterback whose ceiling is, generously, average. It's not just questionable. It's bizarre. It's also exactly the kind of decision that franchises think is smart until they're watching their rookie light it up on another team's highlight reel. Because make no mistake, if Shedeur Sanders gets traded and plays even decently for another team, especially one like Miami or Baltimore, the Browns will never live it down. That's the knife's edge Cleveland is dancing on right now. Do they finally embrace the potential they've been sitting on? Or do they stay paralyzed, waiting for a safer moment that may never come? Meanwhile, Miami isn't waiting. They can't afford to. The Dolphins have turned their season into a slow-motion collapse. 1 win, 6 losses. A quarterback in Tua who looks more unsure every week. An offense that's gone from fast and fearless to slow and stale. A locker room that can't keep buying into the system if the system keeps failing. And when things get this bad, teams get reckless. That's what this potential Sanders trade really is. It's desperation disguised as innovation. It's a front office staring at a ruined season and saying, screw it, let's swing. They're not trading for experience. They're not trading for consistency. They're trading for hope. And Sanders, right now, is nothing but hope. No NFL snaps, no pro experience, just raw potential and a mountain of hype. But in this league, sometimes that's all it takes. Because if he works, if Sanders comes and gets the start and delivers even a spark of that college brilliance, then Miami looks like geniuses. They go from 1 to 6 me material to both franchise turning the corner. They don't even have to win right away. They just have to look alive again. It's not about being good. It's about being interesting. And Shedeur Sanders makes teams interesting. Let's not pretend this is a new strategy, either. The NFL has a long, proud history of teams in trouble turning to rookies for salvation. What's different here is that Miami is eyeing a rookie who isn't even theirs. They're looking to steal hope from a team that's too cautious to use it. They're trying to hijack Cleveland's future because Cleveland won't step into it themselves. That's what makes this trade talk so surreal. The Browns could have the next big thing. But instead of building around him, they're sitting back, crossing their fingers, and hoping their QB room doesn't fall apart before they figure out. And that hesitation? That's exactly what gives teams like Miami confidence to come in swinging. It's not just about the talent. It's about the posture. Miami smells the indecision in Cleveland like blood in the water. They know the Browns don't seem committed to Sanders. They know the front office is wavering. And they're trying to strike before anyone else gets wise. Because there's a clock on this. The trade deadline isn't just a date. It's a pressure cooker. It forces teams to make the kind of decisions they'll spend the next 5 years justifying. And right now, every day that passes without a clear move from Cleveland is another day Miami gets bolder. But here's the danger. If Cleveland caves under that pressure and trades Sanders, the consequences could be massive. Because if Shedeur Sanders turns out to be anything close to what his college tape suggests, if he goes to Miami and becomes a guy who stabilizes that offense, leads with swagger, connects with the fans, and gets that team even remotely back on track, then Cleveland just handed another team their quarterback of the future. And in this league, that's not just a mistake. It's a failure that sticks. People don't forget when you let talent walk, especially at quarterback, especially when you had no backup plan beyond. Well, maybe Gabriel can hold things together. Meanwhile, for Miami, the gamble is big, but the cost of not gambling might be worse. Because what happens if they don't get Sanders? They stick with a struggling Tua. They limp through another season. The offense never recovers. The fan base tunes out. And the Dolphins, once again, become a franchise defined by what almost worked. They've been there before. They know that pain, which is why this potential trade feels like more than a personnel move. It's a bet on identity. Miami wants to stop being careful. They want to stop being next year. They want to be now. They want Sanders because he represents a shortcut to relevance, even if it's risky. And honestly, that's the playbook the modern NFL is running on. The league isn't built on conservative long-term development anymore. It's built on spectacle, on high-profile gambles, on the belief that if you land the right quarterback, everything else falls into place. And Shedeur, despite not having played it down yet, is already being treated like that guy. A quarterback whose value is as much about brand as it is about ability, which is why this whole situation matters beyond just Miami and Cleveland. It's a spotlight on how the NFL works now. Who gets chances, who gets ignored, which teams trust their gut, and which ones second-guess themselves into irrelevance. And if Baltimore jumps in too, that's when it goes nuclear. Because a 3-team race to trade for a quarterback who hasn't even seen an NFL field yet, that's not just chaos. It's confirmation that the league isn't waiting for certainty anymore. It's chasing impact. And the Browns? They're about to find out what happens when you let the league write your story for you. Whether they trade Sanders or not, the damage may already be done. They've shown hesitation, doubt, and in a league obsessed with conviction, that kind of indecision costs you more than games. It costs you reputation. So now all eyes are on the clock. Will Cleveland hold the line? Will Miami make the move? Will Baltimore steal it all at the last second? Whatever happens next, one thing is clear. This saga isn't just about one rookie quarterback. It's about a league addicted to drama, to movement, to narrative. And Shedeur Sanders has become the face of that narrative. If he stays in Cleveland, the noise doesn't stop. Every week he's benched. Every snap Gabriel plays, the questions get louder. If he's traded to Miami, the hype train goes into overdrive. Every pass, every press conference, every social media clip becomes part of the spectacle. And if Baltimore slides in at the last minute, the entire AFC has to recalibrate. There's a reason this story refuses to die. It's not just because it involves the Miami Dolphins or the Cleveland Browns, or even Shedeur Sanders himself. It's because this is exactly what the NFL has become. Not a league of strategy, not a league of patience, but a league of moments, a league of stories, a league of decisions that are less about game plans and more about optics. And right now, the optics are screaming louder than any coach on the sideline. Let's be honest. Cleveland doesn't look like they have a plan. They look like they stumbled into Shedeur Sanders and then got cold feet the second things got a little complicated. He should be their guy. He should be on the field. He should be learning on the job. Because what's the upside of keeping him on the bench behind Gabriel? To preserve some imaginary sense of control? To avoid shaking things up midseason? This is the same franchise that's made a career out of quarterback instability. Now they finally have a quarterback with real potential, real buzz, and they won't even play him? And they're reportedly turning down trade offers? What are they even waiting for? Meanwhile, Miami is the complete opposite. There's no hesitation, no subtlety. Their season is slipping away, and they're ready to torch the whole thing, if it means getting someone who can restart the engine. They've tried everything else. They loaded up on speed. They gave Tua years of trust. They've shuffled through offensive coordinators and flashy additions. And it's not working. They know it. You know it. Everyone knows it. That's why Shedeur isn't just a quarterback prospect to them. He's a reset button. He's a statement. He's a signal to fans, media, and the rest of the league that they're not going to sink quietly. They're chasing chaos. They're betting on the upside. They're doing what desperate teams do. And in the NFL, that kind of desperation often turns into momentum. And maybe that's why the idea of Shedeur landing in Miami hits so hard. Because it feels like one of those moves that shouldn't work, but absolutely could. The kind of wild swing that flips a franchise. Not because it's perfectly planned, but because it's so bold, it demands results. But let's go deeper. Why isn't Cleveland playing him? Is it about protecting him? Afraid to throw him into fire? That argument falls apart quickly when you look around the league. Young quarterbacks are being thrown into the fire everywhere. Some sink, some swim. But the one thing they all get is the opportunity. That's the bare minimum. And Shedeur? He hasn't even gotten that. He's been benched behind a quarterback who hasn't inspired confidence, excitement, or results. That's not development. That's waste. And it's not like Cleveland is blowing teams out. It's not like they're locked into a playoff push and don't want to risk momentum. They're doing just enough to justify bad habits. That's how teams stay in mediocrity forever. And that's what makes Miami's interest so threatening. Because if they get Shedeur, they're not going to hesitate. They're not going to stick him on the bench and talk about when he's ready. They're going to start him, throw him into the spotlight, let him learn by doing, the same way stars have always done in this league. And it could be a disaster. Sure, but it could also be the exact kind of jolt that turns a team around. Because Miami doesn't just need a quarterback. They need a face. Someone to rally around. Someone who feels like the beginning of something. Tua, he's starting to feel like the end. And this is where it gets brutal. If Sanders ends up in Miami and starts, Tua's out. It's not speculation. It's simple math. You don't trade assets for a quarterback like Sanders and not put him on the field. So now the ripple effects start to show. This isn't just a QB trade. This is a shift in identity. Tua might get traded, or benched, or moved in the offseason, and the entire offense will have to rewire itself around a totally new leader. It's chaos, but it's intentional chaos. The kind Miami seems fully prepared to embrace. And if you think the rest of the league isn't watching, you're kidding yourself. Front offices are paying attention. Analysts are circling. And players, especially young quarterbacks, are looking at how Cleveland is handling this situation. Because it's not just about what Shedeur does. It's about how he's treated, respected, trusted. And right now, the message from Cleveland is mixed at best. Which brings us back to the Ravens. Yes, Baltimore is reportedly in the mix. And if they're serious, this changes everything. Because now Cleveland isn't just risking losing Sanders. They're risking sending him to a division rival. And if that happens, and Sanders develops there, you're not just a team that gave up on a future star. You're the team that made your own division harder for the next decade. It's a nightmare scenario, and it's on the table, which is why Cleveland needs to make a decision now. If they believe in Sanders, play him. If they don't, trade him. But what they can't do is sit in the middle, keep him on the bench, turn down trades, refuse to develop him, and refuse to let him go. That's how you lose. Miami, at least, is trying something. And yes, it's risky. Yes, it's messy. But it's active. And in a league built on movement, activity matters. Because what you do or don't do with a player like Shedeur doesn't just define your season. It defines your franchise. So now the pressure's real. Cleveland is on the clock. Miami's already in motion. The Ravens might be waiting to pounce. The media is watching. The fans are restless. And Shedeur Sanders? He's waiting to find out where the league thinks he really belongs. Drop your take in the comments. Who makes the right move here? Should Cleveland play the long game or cash out now? Is Miami reckless or ahead of the curve? Tap that like button if you're riding the wave of this story, and make sure you're subscribed, because in a league built on chaos, this is far from over.